Be strong.
At the same time, there's a blast outside. After the blast, everyone is shocked to see Yu standing there with his one foot on Hyunho. Ji-won says that the Supreme King is here, and Yu looks at Kim, who is comfortably eating his snack. Yu tells everyone that he will now announce the people who will be participating in the upcoming scenario. If they have any objections, then let's hear them. Everyone is afraid of Yu. Hyunho tells Yu to take his foot off him. Yu forces his foot on him even harder. Hyunho starts coughing and calls for his security, but Yu has already defeated them outside. Hyunho passes out, and foam comes out of his mouth. Yu says he guessed the security isn't coming. He says now he will, then who will be in the scenario? Ji-won glances at Kim and wonders why he is so calm. Kim thinks that he is sorry, but he is not in the same boat as them because Yu has acknowledged him as his ally, although he keeps threatening him, saying that the contract period is over, but he pretty much admitted that he needs him. Yu says that the first member will be of course him. Kim is puzzled and wonders why he wouldn't be on the list that he made himself. Yu says a second person will be Ji-hai Lee, and Ji-hai starts grinning. Kim is annoyed and thinks that it is a little surprising that he thought it would be him. Kim thinks that he wasn't a member of his original group after all, and the others might be upset if he gets called before they do. Yu says that the third person will be Seolhwa. Jiyeon thinks that there are still 7 spots left, so there's still a chance for them. Ji-won thinks that they are the strongest of all the remaining, so it is their turn next. Song-cha thinks that those 3 are the only ones in the Supreme King's group. Now he will have to choose people from outside his group for the remaining spots. Yu says that the 4th person will be Lee, and everyone is shocked to hear that. Yu says the 5th person is Huiwen Jeong, and the 6th is Gilliang Lee. Yu glares at Shin. Gilliang puts his hand in front of her and glares back at Yu. Yu looks at Kim, and Kim thinks that it is finally his turn and thinks that Yu saved the best option for last. No wonder he's the main character. He knows how to run a show. Kim takes another bite of the snack. Yu looks at him angrily and tells them that they can all decide on the rest. Kim starts choking on the snack he is eating. Yu leaves the tent while Kim is sitting in his chair. He is shocked and wonders what about him. Huiwen asks Kim if they aren't friends. Kim says that is what he thinks too. The system notifies that the constellation demonic judge of fire is laughing contently. Ji-hai asks Kim why he didn't talk to Master last night. She thought he would definitely be on the list. Kim asks Ji-hai what she means, and she tells Kim that Master said he was going to see him last night. Kim asked about the time, and she replied that it was around 1 or 2. Kim thinks that must have been right before he visited the underworld. He was awake then, but you didn't come. Suddenly, Kim realizes that before he went to the underworld, he was drinking with Sangha, and that must be the reason you didn't meet him last night. The system notifies Kim that the constellation god of alcohol smiles mischievously. Kim is in shock and thinks no way you saw all of that. The system notifies Kim that the constellation demonic judge of fire is smiling contently, and he has been gifted 500 coins. Kim tells them everything that happened. Huiwen asks if he kissed Sangha. Kim says that is not what he said and asks if she was even listening to him. Huiwen asks if he is sure that it was because of Dionysus. Maybe he pretended to be drunk to kiss Sangha. Kim says no, it was because of Dionysus and nothing happened between him and Sangha. Huiwen looks closely into Kim's eyes and Kim thinks that she doesn't believe him at all. Lee says maybe that's what you saw and left him out as a courtesy. Kim says that he is not the type of person to do that. Huiwen says that even if you had seen Kim kiss Sangha, she wouldn't have seen why he would be offended by that. The system notifies that the constellation demonic judge of fire says that it is camaraderie. Huiwen asks because of camaraderie, and Ji-hai starts laughing and asks if that is what her supporting constellation said. Huiwen asks what that means. Lee says if that's the case, then he thinks that he understands. He says that if he came to think of it, he would be offended too if Kim did something like that. Everyone is confused when they hear that, and they look at Lee. The system notifies that the constellation demonic judge of fire is excited to hear such an unexpected statement. Ji-hai asks Lee why he would be upset. Lee replies that he puts his life on the line in every scenario he takes part in. Both he and Mr. Yu are training each morning in order to survive in the upcoming scenario. They repeatedly and rigorously train themselves day after day so that they may be able to protect their comrades in battle. And if a comrade of his who should have his back was doing something like that because he was overcome by lust, then how could he not be upset? Lee clenches his teeth and says if someone who went to an all-boys high school saw that, then anyone would feel betrayed. Lee says that, from what he has seen so far, Mr. Yu was a man of self-restraint and has always been very militaristic in every sense of the word. Despite not being in the military, it would be natural for someone like him to react strongly to something that could disrupt his line of command. He must have felt his camaraderie falling apart. Huiwen says that makes sense. Kim wonders if Lee could be right. The system notifies that the constellation demonic judge of fire nods in agreement. Kim remembers that in the novel, Yu told someone he is pathetic for chasing tail all this time. Anyone who has such lustful desires will be removed from his team as they are prone to cause trouble. Kim thinks that he wouldn't feel so bad about it if he had actually kissed Sangha. He thinks that it is too late to tell them that it is all a misunderstanding. Kim is looking at his mobile when Jiwon tells him that they are thinking of choosing the remaining participants. Jian says that they have 4 remaining since the Supreme King decided to take 6 people with him. Jiwon says that they'll have to pick 4 from the people here. Sang-young says since there are only 4 of them left, they should battle it out between them. After some time, the kings fight with each other. Song-yong-cha is unconscious and Jiwon is panting. Jian says that he will just stay back because someone needs to be here to rule over the people. Jiwon says no way, she thought it was just the Supreme King they had to look out for. She asks Kim how he got so strong. Kim tells her that the men who have just been selected are only the starting members, so be on standby. The second batch should be sent soon. Kim thinks that they should have done this from the beginning. Jiwon stands up and says it is what it is. She asks Kim who he is sending in now that he has earned 4 spots. Kim says that, including himself, he will take Shin. He tells Huiwen to go on ahead as he has some business to take care of, and everyone leaves the tent. Only Kim and the King of Wanderers remain. She says that Kim has made many friends, and Kim tells her that she has been a long-time mother. She takes off her mask and says that they saw each other last time. Kim says he just passed her by then and thinks that she's still the same. She only looks as if she's in her late 30s. People used to ask him if she was his cousin when he was younger. Kim thinks that he thought of just ignoring her, but he needs her help to complete the upcoming scenario. Kim asks when she got out of prison. She says a while ago. Kim asked if she was in Seoul, and she said that she had just been visiting to see someone. Kim asks if that is how she got trapped in the Seoul Dome, and she says that's right. Kim asks her if she was released, and then why she is wearing a prisoner's uniform. She says it was because she wanted to make up for what she did. She tells Kim that all human beings are prisoners and that they all live in cells of their own. Kim thinks that she's just as arrogant as ever. She really hasn't changed at all. She tells Kim that he should thank her. Things would have been difficult without her. Kim thinks that she is right about that. She led her people and defeated the catastrophe of the North. Even though it was weak, it was still a catastrophe. She tells Kim that he doesn't seem pleased to see her when it has been so long. Kim asks if she really wants something like that, and she replies a little. The system notifies Kim that personal skill lie detection level 1 has been activated. It says that the statement just now was a lie. Kim starts smiling and thinks that he knows she is lying, but he has to check. Kim tells his mother that he is impressed that she managed to survive all that has happened so far, and she replies that it is thanks to the stories he told her. Kim says it is just as he thought. She tells Kim that he is probably the only kid in the world who told his imprisoned mother about some book he has read because there was nothing else to talk about. Kim tells her that the book was his everything. Kim thinks that if it wasn't for TWSA and if the author hadn't serialized that story, he wouldn't be standing here right now. She tells Kim that it is just third-grade garbage. Kim is surprised to hear that and tells her that it is all thanks to that garbage novel that she was able to survive. The system notifies that the constellation prisoner of the Golden Headband is watching him with great interest. The constellation secretive plotter is watching him with mysterious eyes, and the constellation demonic judge of fire is watching him with pity. Kim starts walking towards her and asks which attribute she has. He puts his hands on the table and says that he is guessing it might have to do something with the stories he told her, and she asks why she should tell him that. Kim says that if she still thinks of him as her child, she doubts that he even thinks of her as his mother. Kim says a little. The system notifies that the character Sejong Lee has used lie detection and has confirmed that Kim is telling a lie. Kim is surprised to see that she also has that skill. He thinks that she must be his mom. She asks Kim if he still blames her. Kim turns his head and says that he is not here to talk about that. He thinks that he can't tell if she's acting or if she's sincere. She tells Kim that his father is a bad man. Kim says that he knows, but still, that doesn't mean she could do what she did to him. She tells Kim that sometimes one has to make some sacrifices for a better life. Kim says that is just nonsense. When one murders someone, they have to pay the price for their actions. She tells Kim that she sees all that reading has made him quite an eloquent speaker. Kim shouts at her that to him, his life seemed even more unreal than that novel all because of her. He asks if she knows why he came to see her, and she tells Kim that they can both detect the lies, so let's just cut the act. Kim asks if she knows the old lady with inmate number 406 and lends her to him. She tells Kim that he might be better off taking that incarnation who has Giannucci as their supporting constellation. Kim tells her that Giannucci is one of her closest allies and that the old lady will be of more help to him. She tells Kim that she can see why, seeing what they're up against. She asks Kim how he knows what supporting constellation inmate number 406 has. Kim says that he can't reveal that information, but she tells Kim that he must have a skill that lets him find out someone's supporting constellation. Kim asks if she is going to lend her to him or not, and he thinks that he better watch out for what he should say in front of her. She starts smiling and says that she will, but he should introduce her to his friends next time. Kim is surprised to hear that, and Sejong starts wearing her mask. Kim thinks that bringing out the worst in people is what she does best. Sejong tells Kim that it is about time he faced reality. She says that even if all of this fiction becomes a reality, he should never believe them to be real. Kim is in shock. The system notifies Kim that the fourth wall is shaking violently. Kim thinks that just a few words from her and his whole world are shaking violently. She's the person who reminds him of the reality that he hates so much. She asks Kim if he understands, and the system notifies that stigma and self-justification level 1 is activated. Kim thinks that he hates her. He hates seeing that she's trying to be a mom all of a sudden when too much time has passed to turn things back to the way they were. The system notifies Kim that the fourth wall is beginning to shake less. Kim tells her that she is right. He takes fiction to be reality because that's just the way he has lived all these years. It might seem pathetic to her, but know this, at least he doesn't sell off reality to be fiction like she did. Kim is furious as he quickly leaves the tent and is about to collide with Sangha. He is startled to see her. She says that she is sorry. It is just that Kim was taking so long, and she got worried. There's an awkward silence between the two. After some time, Kim and Sangha are walking. He asks how her hangover is, and she tells him that she is fine. Sangha tells Kim that she heard that he carried her back here, and she's sorry that she has been nothing but a nuisance again. Kim tells her that it is fine. She was only trying to look after him. He asks Sangha if she heard anything, and she nods her head in approval. Kim thinks that there was a sound wave blocking skill, and he wonders if you broke it on his way in. Kim tells her that she must have found it rather strange why a mother and son would talk like that to each other. Sangha replies that she did not think so. Kim asks if she wants to know why, and she replies only if it is okay with him. Kim starts smiling and tells her that his mother killed his father and served time in prison. Sangha is shocked to hear that. Kim says that it might sound a little harsh, but his father was someone who deserved that. Domestic violence, gambling, violence, and debt. He used to beat them every day while he was alive, and one day, his mom mustered up the courage and ended up doing something about it. Kim tells her that he thought rumors had gotten around at work already, but he guessed she didn't hear that. She must be even more confused now as to why he hated his mother when she did what she did to end the suffering. Kim asks Sangha if it puzzles her, and she says not at all. She may not be able to understand him completely. Kim interrupts her and asks if she thinks that he should forgive her for what she did. Kim asks Sangha if she knows about a book called A Murderer's Notes from the Underground. Sangha is excited to think that it is a change in topic. She tells Kim that she has heard about it and it is a bestseller. Kim says that it was an essay a woman wrote while she was in prison for killing her husband who had abused her, and it was critically acclaimed. Kim says that the critics called it Korea's very own notes from the underground, and it is very overrated, of course. Sanga is in shock to hear that. Kim says that it is right. His mother wrote it. Kim tells Sanga that he can still remember how his house was flooded with reporters and everyone kept asking him if his essay was based on a true story. He even remembers everything his classmates said about how his mother sold off her past as a murderer to make money. Even his relatives asked him how his mom could allow herself to be seen in the papers like that when she is a murderer. Sanga is worried about Kim. He tells her that he can stand being the son of a murderer, but having that story sold off for money is a different story. To think that his life was being exchanged for money by someone else is a completely different story. Kim thinks that the constellations didn't gift him any coins then, but more than ever before, he can feel that the constellations are looking at him right now. This too must be just a story to them. Kim asks Sanga if she still thinks that he should forgive his mother. Kim thought that this was the vilest form of violence he could use against Sanga, who was raised in a happy home. Kim started laughing and said that he was sorry, he was just joking. Sanga is surprised and asks what. Kim tells her that was a lie and asks her how can something so dramatic happen in real life. His mom and he are just like all other regular families, and his dad died in an accident when he was little. Suddenly, Sanga grabs his hand, and the system notifies Kim that the fourth wall is shaking lightly. At the same time, someone calls Kim from behind, and they quickly let go of each other's hands. Huiwen and the rest arrive there, and she asks Kim if they kissed again, and Sanga starts blushing. Huiwen says, looking at Sanga, blushing, they must have kissed again. Kim tells her to quit it, but nothing happens between the two of them. Huiwen tells Kim that some strange old lady came looking for him. The old lady asks Kim what he would want from a useless old hag like her. She looks at Kim and says that he must be Kim. She has heard a lot about him, and she says that it is nice to meet him. Kim looks at the old lady. She is wearing a prison uniform and walking using a stick. Everyone is gathered at the station, looking at the sky. A lamp is floating in the air, and Yu is looking at the lamp, and Kim arrives there. Yu says he has come. Kim says that he is not happy to see him. Yu tells him that he doesn't have to participate in this one. It seems that he has a woman he loves. Kim is surprised to hear that. Yu is looking at the lamp and tells Kim that things will only get harder from this point forward. Kim wonders if Yu left him out because he was looking after him, and Yu tells him that this could be his last scenario. Kim thinks that he is the same Yu who lost Seolhwa in the previous round. Kim tells Yu that it isn't like that and that this isn't the time for love, and Yu asks him if he would mind dying then. Kim asks him why he is being so harsh, and he tells Yu that he is hurting his feelings. Yu glares at Kim and tells him not to forget that he hasn't paid him back for the beating he took. Kim is confused and wonders if he wants him dead or alive. Kim says that he had almost forgotten about it, and he says thanks for reminding him, jerk. Kim tells everyone through a message that now he will go over some things they should be aware of for this scenario. He tells everyone that they can only enter the wrapped crystal in pairs, and for that reason, they will move in pairs in this scenario. Kim and Shin will be in Group 1, Huiwen and Lee will be in Group number 2, Sanga and the old prisoner last will be in Group number 3, and since Gileong is the odd one out, Jihai from Yu's group will be partnering up with him, and for Yu, he must have already something figured out. Kim tells everyone that they might feel a little anxious after entering the crystal, so don't be flustered. The scenario screen will pop up as soon as they arrive on the other side. Kim says that when the scenario screen pops up, he gets interrupted by a dokkaebi. Yonggi appears near the crystal and tells everyone to hold on. He says that he is sorry, but there's an emergency announcement. He starts sweating and says that he almost forgot to tell them, but the initial number of people allowed in from Seoul Dome will be 8 and not 10. Everyone is shocked to hear that. Yonggi tells everyone that there was a dimensional rift during the 5th scenario, which caused some contestants to enter the 6th scenario prematurely, and 2 people from the Seoul Dome are already in the scenario. Kim suddenly realizes that he saw Pildu and Seong on the screen while he was visiting the underworld, and they were already in the scenario on the screen that Persephone showed him. Yonggi says that although they were let in due to an error in the scenario, they can't help but reduce the number of participants to keep things fair. A person shouts that it is nonsense, and Huiwen asks Kim what they should do now. Kim has an angry look on his face. After some time, everyone is standing near the crystal. Kim is holding the protection symbols of immunter, parasites, and embargo. The system notifies Kim to insert the 5 protection symbols in the crystal. Kim starts inserting the 3 symbols, and he sees that his mother is inserting the protection symbol she obtained after defeating the catastrophe of water, and Yu is inserting the protection symbol of the catastrophe of ice. The system notifies that they have proven their worth, and the wrap crystal has been activated. The crystal starts hovering in the air, and a portal opens up. The system notifies that the main scenario has been updated, and the main scenario, Abandoned World, has begun. Sangha tells everyone that she will sit this one out. Kim is surprised to hear that. Huiwen raises her hand and says that she will sit this one out too, because there's a second part anyway. She tells Kim that he seems a little out of it, but she is sure that he will be okay because that scary man also seems to be on their side this time. Kim thinks that he won't have anything to worry about, leaving Sangha and Huiwen behind, even if they hold a contest again to see who will enter the scenario. Those two will have no problem making it in. Kim thinks about who he needs to take now, this old lady. Kim comes near Sangha and whispers in her ear that he forgot to tell her before, but please tell the king of the wanderers to watch out for Ildojian. Sangha tells Kim not to die. Kim nods his head in approval. Huiwen starts teasing them and says that they are driving her crazy over here. After some time, Kim tells everyone to let go. He holds Shin's hand and jumps towards the portal. Kim and Shin arrive in a forest. They are both unconscious, and the system notifies them that the main scenario, Abandoned World, has begun. Shin starts vomiting after waking up. Kim looks around and sees that they are surrounded by trees. He thinks that it looks like they got dropped off in the middle of the forest. Some monsters are lurking in the bushes. Kim grabs his sword and goes near Shin, and the system notifies Kim that the tier monsters, Steel Wolves, have appeared. Shin looks at the wolves and tells Kim that they seem a little small. After some time, Shin and Kim easily defeat the wolves. Shin says it looks like they won't give them any coins. Kim tells her that the event is over now. Shin says not even any items, they don't even have a nucleus. Kim tells her that it is because they outlevel them by far. Kim looks at the wolves and wonders if they are tier 7 monsters because they feel like they are somewhere around tier 9. Shin says that they also feel a little too small. Kim jumps in the air, takes a look at the area from above, and says that it is not all first. They should head out that way. Kim and Shin start walking in the forest. Kim checks the scenario on the screen and sees that it still only has the title, and that the rest of the details are still question marks. The system notifies Kim that he has not yet fulfilled the prerequisite for activating the scenario. Kim and Shin come out of the forest and look at the army of soldiers waiting there. A soldier orders everyone to get their skills ready and charged, and there are horse riders and archers in the army. As the army starts charging, Shin and Kim are shocked to see that. Shin shouts at Kim, saying that the people here are so small. Kim tells her that they must be the residents of this world. Shin says don't tell her that they have to fight them. Shin looks down on the ground and says that they are so small. The system notifies them that they have encountered residents from other worlds and checks the content of the scenario. Suddenly, Kim and Shin are surprised to see that someone has started crushing the soldiers under their feet. A soldier shouts that catastrophes have appeared on the other side too, and the soldiers start running in panic. A soldier shouts at everyone to retreat, and a person with red hair and another with an axe start crushing the soldiers. Kim grabs Shin by her mouth and hides behind a tree. The person holding the axe says that this scenario is a joke. Another person arrives from behind and says Amano, wait, he says that they shouldn't kill them. He asks if he forgot what Izumi told them. Amano asks Mishio if he is still going on about Izumi when it has been that long since they have lost contact with them. Mishio is wearing glasses and is wielding a sword. Amano tells Mishio that he knows what scenario this is, so this isn't the time to think about the morality of their actions and not forget what has become of them. Shin is worried and asks what this scenario is supposed to be. Kim looks at her and thinks that he knows all this time why Yu didn't want to bring Shin. If one thinks about it, Yu is probably more human than him. Kim tells Shin that the star stream doesn't host its scenarios on just Earth. This scenario involves the residents of the other worlds too. The system notifies that many constellations are starved for blood and violence, and many constellations are egging him on to make a decision. The system activates the main scenario number 6, the Abandoned World. The category is main, and the difficulty is S. Clear conditions are to drive the ruling species of planet Peace Land of the 19781st planetary system to extinction. The time limit is 40 days, and the rewards are 200,000 coins and something unknown. There is no penalty for failure. Shin is shocked to see that the little soldiers are being brutally killed. Kim thinks that in the sixth scenario, they are no longer tasked with stopping the catastrophe, but they must become the catastrophe that destroys this world. A soldier flies near Kim. He is bleeding and says, "Please have mercy on them." Great catastrophe. The system notifies Kim that he has become the catastrophe for the planet Peace Land. The soldier grabs Kim's finger with his hand. The system notifies Kim to carry out his mission as a catastrophe. The countries currently participating in the scenario are Japan and Korea. Shin asks if they created this scenario too, right? The mid-grade dokkaebi. She sees a dokkaebi smiling in the air. Dokkaebi Ganel says that the third team to arrive from Japan Dome is going all out from the start. Ganel tells them that he hopes they'll be able to earn many coins here in Peaceland. Amano says that it is too easy. It is just like the people ahead of them told them it would be. Amano asks Marayama whose side he will take. He replies that of course he will go with the leader. Kim remembers that the leader is a nickname that's given to a powerful person in TWSA. Kim thinks that he has a good idea of what Japan's situation is like for this round. But it is strange, no matter how strong the leader is, the strongest person in Japan would be Izumi. Michio says that the king of Japan is Izumi, and he asks Amano and Marayama if they have forgotten that. Kim thinks that Japan's most powerful incarnation and the occupier of the ruler's throne is Izumi Hiroki. Kim wonders if they will join a different group when Izumi is still alive. Amano tells Michio that he must have heard the rumors. At the same time, the system notifies them that some constellations wish to see them crush 10 small men in one step. Amano excitedly starts running and says leave it to him. Michio comes in front of him and tells him to stop right there. He asks if they haven't killed enough already, and he tells them that Izumi or Ren will be upset if they see them do something like that. Amano tells Michio to move side and says that he is annoying the constellations. Michio pulls out his sword, and Amano asks if he is insane and if he is going to fight them because of those little insects. Marayama tells him not to get ahead of himself. Kim is surprised to see that Michio is risking his life to save them. He wonders if he knows him and activates the skill character profile. The system notifies that Kim doesn't have any significant information on the target character, and it is now converting to character summary. His full name is Michio Shoji. He has no supporting constellation. One constellation is currently interested in this incarnation. Personal attributes are a righteous coward. Overall stats show that the stamina level is 25, strength level is 24, agility level is 30, and mana level is 23. Overall evaluation shows that this character's overall stats are way below average, and it is a wonder how he managed to survive up to this point. Kim is surprised to see that and wonders how he managed to survive all this time. Amano tells Michio that he can come at them if he wants, but don't forget that neither Izumi nor Ren is here to save him. Michio is trembling with fear. Suddenly, Michio stops trembling and lowers his sword. Shin asks why that man stopped all of a sudden and if he is scared. Amano and Marayama start grinning, and Marayama pats Michio on the shoulder and says, "Let's get started, Amano." Amano says, "Sure." Then they start obliterating the small soldiers. Shin is furious and about to attack them, but Kim stops her by grabbing her shoulder and telling her to look. A small soldier is wearing armor and is holding a sword in his hand. Shin says that the little person seems different, and Kim says they are not all weak just because they are small. The little soldier jumps on Amano's axe and attacks his arm. He starts bleeding and punches the little soldier down. The rest of the little soldiers say that the catastrophe is bleeding and they can take them down. They start attacking again with all of their might. Some soldiers are climbing on Marayama, and he says they get lost in puny insects. Shin says the little soldiers might have a chance at winning after all. The system notifies that the little constellation of the little planet is cheering for the incarnation Gelenium, and the little constellation of the little planet has gifted 10 coins to the incarnation Gelenium. A soldier is helping Gelenium stand up. At the same time, the dokkaebi appears again and says that this is turning out quite interesting. It is the little hope they have that makes their story even more touching. That being said, he will now remove some penalties that the catastrophes had been under. He says those people who have chosen the way of the catastrophe can now use additional buffs, so please refer to their stat windows. The system notifies them that the contract of plausibility binding the catastrophes has been partly removed. Amano and Marayama start grinning while Amano asks if this could get any better. They have just made things boring for them. The system notifies that the catastrophes can now be in tune with their supporting constellations to a greater level. The fines that may occur due to plausibility errors will be covered by the star stream. There are torn limbs and dead bodies of the little soldiers everywhere. The system notifies that a few constellations are happy with the massacre that's taking place. The system notifies that the little constellation of the little planet is in tremendous pain, and a minority of constellations want to see the limbs of the insolent incarnation, Gelemium, torn apart from his body. Amano is holding Gelemium in his hand. He starts laughing and says if that's what they want, then he will tear his limbs apart. He starts pulling his arm, and Gelemium starts screaming. The system notifies that the constellation of the little planet is writhing in pain, begging for them to stop. Shin clenches her teeth and tells Kim that she can't let them get away with this. Kim tells her that if they end up fighting with them, then the scenario will become much harder. She says that they can still clear it though. Kim is surprised to hear that and says that is right. Shin says that she will do it. The system notifies that the penalties lifted from the catastrophes have now returned. Amano asks if the buff has ended just now. Suddenly, there's a blast behind them, and Gelemium slips out of Amano's grasp. He asks what the hell was that just now and who's there. Kim moves at incredible speed and grabs Gelemium. The system notifies Kim that the star stream has detected an anomaly in his actions, and there's a warning for Kim to take caution and not to make enemies of fellow catastrophes. Kim puts Gelemium down as he looks in pain and starts coughing. The system notifies Kim that the little constellation of the little planet has noticed his presence and is looking at him with a pitiful look. The system notifies Kim that the little planet's constellation is expecting a show of compassion from him. The system notifies that the constellation of the little planet has become hopeful because of his appearance and has gifted him 10 coins. Kim returns the 10 coins gifted to him and tells the constellation that if he indeed cares about his planet, then don't ever do that again, if they don't want their planet to fall prey to their stories. The little constellation of the little planet is flustered and blushes. The system warns Kim again to take caution not to make enemies of the catastrophes. Kim brings out an invisibility cloak and starts wearing it. Shin pulls out a dagger and tells Kim that she will do it this time. She says that she can take on both of them. Kim thinks that if he kills them now, then he will be put under a penalty that might end up ruining his plans for the scenario. Kim thinks that he has a lot of things to do in a peaceful land. He needs to clear the scenario and also hunt down the serpent, as Persephone requested. Kim thinks that if Shin can deal with the two of them, and if he can just delay the penalty, then the chances of their survival will increase drastically. Kim tells her not to drag this on for too long and to be as quick as she can. Shin nods her head and says leave it to her. She starts running towards the catastrophes and cuts them both. Amano asks who is that. Shin is furious as she glares at them. Amano looks at Shin and says that it is just a kid he has never seen before. He asks if she is from the Korean Dome. Marayama says that he has heard that people from Korea might be joining them, and he guesses it is true. Shin is silently looking at them. Kim is standing near her, wearing the cloak of invisibility. He thinks that Shin doesn't have interpretation skills. She mustn't understand them since they are speaking in Japanese. Marayama tells Shin to move aside, and Amano tells her that they don't need to fight each other. Shin isn't replying to them, and she's holding a dagger in her hand. Amano says this isn't good. They were in the middle of a bounty scenario, and his supporting constellation was telling him to just get rid of her. Amano and Marayama look at each other and say maybe it won't be too difficult since there are two of them and Korea has only just joined the scenario. They ask Shin if she has forgotten who joined from their side in the first and second group. Kim thinks that the early starters were the White Demon King Izumi Hiroki and his men, and no matter what country it was, the top participants always arrived first. The little soldiers look up at Shin, and they wonder what is going on. The little constellation of the little planet is moved by the incarnation Shin, and she has gifted 10 coins to Shin. The system notifies that Shin has unlocked a new possibility in the scenario. A select few constellations have evaluated the incarnation Shin positively, and a select few constellations have started cheering for the incarnation Shin. The dokkaebi says that the incarnations from Japan seem to believe that they might be at a disadvantage, but do they really think that's the case? Amano says that, come to think of it, she was the one who attacked them first. Marayama says that she doesn't seem to be aware of the penalties in place right now. He says whether it's Japan or Korea, all the people who entered first must be idiots. A fire starts burning on his hands, and Amano is wielding his axe. He tells Shin that they're not going to go easy on her just because she's a little kid. Amano attacks Shin using his axe. She jumps to avoid the attack, and Marayama attacks her in the air using his fire and says that she can't keep running. Shin pulls herself to the forest using a rope, leaving everyone surprised. Kim thinks that it is a spider web and that the dagger and rope mean that Sangha must have trained her a little. Amano and Marayama start looking for her. Kim activates the skill character profile and the system notifies that it is activating the character summary instead. Kim says that the one with red hair is Marayama Kanishi, his supporting constellation is a fox with two tails, and his personal attribute is an attention seeker, and the other one with an axe is Amano Goro. His supporting constellation is 100-years-old turtles, and his personal attributes are strong and bald. Kim thinks that the sum of their overall stats seems to be above average, but they are still no match for Shin. What worries him is their supporting constellations. Kim thinks that if they are part of Japan's third wave of participants, then they are probably not a force to be reckoned with, but most of Japan's powerful incarnations have either a samurai or a swordsman as their supporting constellation, but both of them have monsters of fable as supporting constellation. Amano and Marayama are looking for Shin in the forest. The system notifies them that the constellation Fox with two tails is displeased with the current display of hypocrisy, and the constellation who used to be monsters is expressing their hostility against the incarnation Shin. Suddenly, Shin starts slashing them from all sides. Amano is angry and asks where she is, while Marayama tells him not to lose his cool and that he will take care of her. He grabs a web and sets it on fire. Shin is trapped in a circle of fire, and Amano moves towards her to kill her. But at the same time, wolves appear from behind and pounce upon him. The system notifies that the incarnation Shin has activated the skill Advanced Interspecies Communications Level 3. Marayama is shocked to see that she's a tamer. The system notifies that a few constellations are impressed by how composed the incarnation Shin was. Kim is also surprised and thinks that he didn't see this coming at all. She sure is a beast lord in the making. Kim thinks that she managed to tame all those wolves in that short amount of time. Suddenly, Shin feels some stage lightning. The system notifies that the star stream detected an irregularity in the actions of the incarnation Shin, and the star stream has sensed hostility being aimed at a fellow catastrophe. The wolves stop eating Amano and start leaving. Marayama starts laughing and says he knew this would happen. The system notifies that incarnation Shin will now be under a level 1 scenario penalty, and Kim thinks that she dragged this out for too long. The system notifies that the incarnation Shin's total body mass has decreased, and her overall stats have decreased. Marayama attacks Shin using his fire, and Kim jumps in front and takes the attack. He thinks that he should jump in and finish this. Shin shouts at Kim to let her be the one to finish this. Kim wonders what is driving this child to do such a thing. The system notifies that Shin will now be under a level 2 scenario penalty. Kim thinks that one thing he knows for sure is that this is her battle, and she needs to fight it alone. Shin picks up her dagger and starts charging towards Marayama. She jumps in the air, launches herself at Marayama, and cuts his back. Marayama starts bleeding and says that she'll regret this. The system notifies that the incarnation Shin has defeated the catastrophe that has yet to be named, and Marayama falls to the ground. The system notifies that the main contributor is Shin, and she has lost all powers of a catastrophe. The dokkaebi of the star stream has deemed Shin's actions as a hostile action against the scenario, and that incarnation Shin has received a level 3 scenario penalty. Shin panted while sitting on the ground, and the system noted that Shin had begun to grow smaller. Kim takes off the invisibility cloak and starts walking towards Shin. She is trying to wriggle her way out from under her clothes. After some time, Kim is carrying Shin in his hand. She asks how many of those people are remaining, and Kim says quite a lot. Shin asks Kim if he knows what will happen. Kim nods his head in approval. Kim starts walking towards Michio. He is unconscious and lying on the ground. Shin asks Kim if he is going to kill him too. Kim says no, they have a use for him. Kim thinks that he is the only one who tried to protect the small men. If he is correct, then he needs him for the plan he has for the scenario. The system notifies Kim that he should take caution not to make enemies of fellow catastrophes, because a catastrophe that has opposed another catastrophe will end up losing all the powers that come from being a catastrophe. Kim looks up and sees that the dokkaebi is laughing in the air. The system notifies that the star stream has deemed that he did not take enough action in his role as a catastrophe. The system warns Kim that if he does not murder a member of the ruling species of Peaceland within the next hour, his status as a catastrophe will be forfeited on the basis that he has no intention of acting as a catastrophe. Kim thinks that he now has 1 hour left. He must hunt down the king of the catastrophe within this hour. After some time, Michio wakes up and thinks that he is very lucky. He looks at Kim and thinks that Korea is a scary place. Michio remembered that Maruyama and Amano were defeated in an instant. She was very strong even though she was just a kid, and he saw everything while pretending to be asleep. Michio thinks that if a kid like her is that strong, then he wonders how strong Kim is going to be. Kim activates level 2 of the omniscient reader's viewpoint. Michio thanks Kim for helping him and says if it wasn't for him, then he would have died at the hands of some beast. Kim says that it is nothing. Michio says that he didn't expect a Korean to help him of all people. Kim tells him that they should all look out for each other. Michio thinks that he is so humble, and above all else, he likes that Kim speaks fluent Japanese. He knows that it is just a translation skill, but seeing that he has the skill to translate Japanese, it must mean that he thinks positively of them. Michio says that he forgot to introduce himself and tells Kim that he is Michio Shoji. Kim also tells him his name. Michio asks Kim if he has seen that child who killed Maruyama and Amano. Kim tells him that, unfortunately, he was the only one alive when he got there. Kim says that he must be devastated to find out that his allies died. Michio is angry and says no. Michio thinks that they deserve to die, but as for him, he can't even stand up to them. Kim is looking at him as the system notifies that the constellation fox with 2 tails fails to hide the anger they are feeling, and the constellation turtle glares at the being that killed its incarnation. Kim says that he guessed the people of Japan have contracts mostly with monsters of fable. Michio says not really, they only increased in number recently, and none of this would have happened if Izumi was still here. Michio thinks that just a while ago, monsters of fable-type constellations didn't have much influence over them when Izumi was still in Tokyo. Kim is surprised to hear that and asks who Izumi is. Michio replies that Izumi claimed the absolute throne in Tokyo, and he is Japan's most powerful incarnation who entered into a contract with a powerful supporting constellation, and Izumi was also the one who led them when their first group entered the scenario. Kim asks if something happened to him. Michio says that since he is the one who saved him, he must have seen that child grow smaller. Kim says of course he saw her grow small all of a sudden. Michio says that the Japanese groups that entered the scenario later already knew of that penalty. Kim says that means some men in the first group must have sided with the small men already. Michio says yes. Kim asks if Izumi is one of them, and he replies that he does not know because they stopped getting dimensional carrier pigeons a week ago, and the last carrier pigeon had this message for them. It said that they couldn't kill small men, kill the small men. Kim says that 2 messages tell them to do the opposite. He asks why they received 2 different messages, and Michio says that he doesn't know. He came here hoping to find that out himself. Michio tells him that he intends to go to the place where their last carrier pigeon was sent out. He might be able to learn something. Michio suddenly realizes that no matter how well-intended Kim looks, maybe he shouldn't have told a Korean participant too much. He could actually be a Korean villain that he doesn't know of. Michio asks Kim if he thinks that they should kill the small men for the sake of their own survival. Kim replies that if they resort to something like that, then they would be no different from the catastrophes that attacked the Earth. Michio is surprised to hear that and thinks that his eyes are as deep as Izumi's. Shin calls Kim, he gets startled, and the system notifies Kim that level 2 of the omniscient reader's viewpoint has ended. The system notifies Kim that his understanding of the character Michio has increased drastically. Kim replies to Shin and says that he is sorry, he was practicing his skill. Kim thinks that he is so focused on using his skill that he forgets about Shin for a moment. Shin hides inside his pocket and messages Kim that she is a little surprised. To be honest, she doesn't understand how someone as average as Michio has survived all this time. Kim is listening to Michio as he is rambling on about his past. Kim thinks that he sees why she would think that in TWSA, Michio only plays a passing role, a very average person whose life can be summarized in just a few pages. Kim replies to Shin that she has seen how regular people killed others to survive. She says that was because the scenario forced them to. Kim asks her if she could say the same thing for the small men who were murdered earlier. He tells Shin that no one who has survived this long is ever average because this average-looking young man could become a catastrophe for some. Shin looks sad while sitting in the pocket. She asks Kim if she could have stopped them from becoming catastrophes if she had stopped them a little earlier. Kim replies no, it wouldn't have made a difference either way because a man can be a catastrophe to one another. She asks if that is why she will become a catastrophe in the future. Kim replies that he will make sure that doesn't happen. A fly is buzzing around Kim. Michio says that insects seem to remain the same size here. They must feel like catastrophes to small people. Kim thinks that there's no way insects are the same size in a world where everything else is smaller. He asks Shin if she can understand what they're saying. Shin activates the Advanced Interspecies Communications Level 3. She listens carefully and says that they seem to be saying to Kim that they have rendezvoused with the second group. Kim replies that it is good and tells Shin to send him a message as well. Michio looks at Kim and asks if he is listening. Kim says that he is and asks if he wasn't talking about the isekai genre. Michio is excited to hear that Kim thinks that he can't believe he is talking about anime at a time like this. This goes to further prove that everyone who has survived this long is far from ordinary. Kim tells him that he is aware that it is a very popular genre in Japan and that he has seen a few works like it. Michio says that he has seen his share of anime and isekai is his favorite genre, the ones where the protagonist ends up in another world with information about that world readily available to them. Kim says that maybe the world they are in is already an isekai for some of them, and someone out there might be this world's protagonist. Michio says that this is an interesting theory. He knew someone who had said the same thing as he had just done. Kim says they must have been a fan of anime. Michio says a comic book artist, to be exact, was the first to enter the scenario from Tokyo, and her name is Asuka Ren. Kim is surprised to hear that this world could also be part of a comic someone drew. Kim asks Michio if he can tell him where she's right. Michio looks at something and tells Kim that he thinks they have found it. There's a sign carved in a tree. Michio says that this is the sign that participants from the first batch have left behind. He says it should be nearby. He is certain that Izumi's group was near this area. They start looking for any signs nearby. They step into the circle drawn on the ground, and the system notifies them that they have entered the demon's formation, and their overall stats have decreased due to the effects of the demon's formation. Kim thinks that demon formation is a stigma that is unique to Japanese constellations. It is the skill that helped White Demon King Izumi Hiroki become one of the top 100 people in TWSA. Michio starts calling for Izumi and asks if he can hear him. Kim thinks no. If it was Izumi who cast this demon's formation, then it would be much harder to remain standing right now. Only a select few Japanese incarnations other than Izumi can cast demon's formation. Kim thinks that there's no doubt about it that the serpent incarnate is nearby. Suddenly, some people wearing masks arrive there, and one of them tells Michio that he has brought a Korean. Michio tells them to wait. He isn't their enemy because he actually saved him. The man wearing a mask says that he must have come here with their third group and asks Michio whose team he is on. Michio says that he is with Izumi, and everyone starts laughing. The man wearing a mask tells him that such a team doesn't exist anymore. Michio asks if Izumi has been killed. One of them starts checking his stats and says that his name is Michio Shoji, his overall stats are below average, and he has no supporting constellation. He tells the man wearing a mask that he is a nobody. The one in the mask says that he doesn't deserve to know what happened to Izumi. They will spare his life, so he should get lost. Kim steps in front and asks what about him. They start checking Kim's stats. The system notifies Kim that someone has used a battle counter on him, and the system notifies that the personal skill fourth wall has been activated. The battle counter starts beeping and is destroyed. The system notifies that the battle counter has ceased to function due to the fourth wall effect. Michio excitedly says that this is a scene he has only seen in comic books. Kim grabs his sword and asks where the serpent is. The man in the mask says that he doesn't know how much he knows about them, but now they can't let him leave. The man wearing the mask asks Kim who he is. Kim is about to answer, but the masked man tells him to wait and says that he is the rude idiot in the coat who uses swords that Dokkaebi warned him about. He tells Kim that he must be the leader of the Soul Dome, but looks a little different from what he heard. Kim is angry and thinks that they have mistaken him for you. The masked man tells everyone to surround Korea's Supreme King. Michio tells them that there's a misunderstanding and that he isn't the Supreme King. Kim taps him with his shoulder and tells him to be quiet. Kim warns them that they will grow smaller if they attack him. He replies that they won't attack him, but Kim will be the one to attack them. Kim asks why he would do that, and one of them says that if he doesn't, then his friends will die. Kim sees that they are holding his friends captive, and they have turned small. Lee tells Kim that he is sorry. Shin asks Kim what they should do now. Kim starts grinning and says, just as expected, all of them have already turned smaller. The system warns Kim that if he doesn't hunt the small people within the next 16 minutes, the star stream will consider him to have no intention of acting as a catastrophe and his status as a catastrophe will be forfeited. Kim thinks that he has to come to a decision soon. He wonders if he should hunt the serpent here or give up. Kim looks at Michio, and the system notifies Kim that Michio is feeling guilty for the situation he is in, and he has made a life-altering decision. He has reached a state of evolution. Michio brings out his sword and says that he will take care of these men. Kim is surprised to see that. Michio says that he is an honorable man who will not let his savior fall into trouble. Kim tells him to wait, and Michio tells Kim that he should run away, and he will buy him some time. Michio starts running towards the masked men while crying. The system notifies that Michio has given up all the powers of being a catastrophe as he gets kicked in the stomach. Kim thinks that he bought him some time ago. He looks at Lee, and they both nod at each other. Kim asks the masked man why they are being hostile towards them. They may be from different countries, but this scenario isn't between Korea and Japan, but between the small people and the catastrophe. The masked man asks if he doesn't know that they were the ones who showed hostility towards them first. The participants from Korea attacked them first. Kim asks Lee if this is true. Lee says that it isn't, but they did fight to protect the small people. The masked man tells Kim that if he is going to pretend like he doesn't know anything, then just stop right there. It was a man and a woman who attacked them first. Kim wonders if he is talking about Pildu and Sion. Kim asks what they look like, and the masked man tells Kim that if he doesn't, he will start attacking them soon. Suddenly, Kim activates the personal skill bookmark number 4. The system notifies that the Way of the Wind level 8 has been activated. Kim swings his sword, and a strong gust of wind starts flowing. Kim catches his friends and tells them to hold tight. He puts Gilliang in his pocket. He also picks Michio from the ground and starts running at wind speed. The system notifies that Starstream has sensed hostility being aimed at a fellow catastrophe. Kim will now be under level 1 scenario penalty, and his overall stats have been decreased. The system notifies that his total body mass has decreased slightly. The system notifies that the constellations of other continents want to see the incarnations of Japan and Korea fight each other, and Kim has been gifted 2,000 coins. Kim thinks that they want him to put on a show for them. Kim asks Jihai how they managed to get her so quickly, and she says there aren't any water bodies nearby. Kim looks at Lee and thinks that he is sure Lee was penalized because he wanted to protect the small people. The masked men follow him, and one of them says that he is headed toward where their leader is. Kim thinks their boss is the leader. Kim remembers that the leader wasn't Japan's boys in the original 3rd round, but it seems like this leader has taken control of Japan in place of Izumi, who is supposed to be Japan's king. Lee apologizes to Kim for being penalized too quickly. Kim tells him that he did well, and Lee asks if their leader is the serpent that he has been looking for. Kim says that it seems like it. Kim thinks that there were many cases where the leader's supporting constellation was a serpent during Yu's early rounds, so unless something drastic changes, the leader in this round will also be the serpent incarnate. The old lady asks Kim if she isn't too heavy for him to carry. Kim tells her that she is. He thinks that is because the body mass of this old lady hasn't decreased despite her size, and that is why she is vital in his plans for the scenario. Kim sees someone sitting in the forest. He says that the forest is definitely noisy today, and he asks his men what all this commotion is. he is eating something, there's a cage on his lap, and he has a scar on his eye. Kim thinks that he must be the leader. Michio starts shouting after seeing someone and says that Asuka is alive. Asuka Ren is sitting in the cage on a pile of bones. Asuka asks Michio what he is doing here. Kim thinks that it is good. It will be even better if he can save Asuka Ren while hunting the serpent. Kim activates the personal skill character profile and looks at the leader. His name is Yamamoto Hajime, age 64. The supporting constellation is a million-year-old creature with 100 legs, and personal attributes include Heartless Tactician and Corpse Devourer. Personal skills include Close Combat Level 7, Advanced Weapon Proficiency Level 4, Kendo Level 8, Mental Fortitude Level 3, and Crowd Command Level 4. His stigmas are Demon's Formation Level 7 and Shout of Concentration Level 5. His stamina, strength, agility, and mana are at level 60. Character evaluation shows that one of Japan's largest groups possesses the stigma Demon's Formation, which applies heavy penalties against human targets. It is recommended that they don't fight against him, unless he wants all monster-type constellations to turn their backs on him. Kim is shocked to see that his supporting constellation is not a serpent. Kim wonders what is going on, and if something went wrong during this round. Yamamoto tells Kim that he withstood the effects of the Demon's Formation even as a mere human, so he shouldn't take him too lightly. Kim asks him where the serpent is, and Kim tells him that he is a centipede. Kim looks at Yamamoto and remembers that 1,000,000-years-old creatures with 100 legs, just like turtles who lived 1,800 years, can go on to become a constellation. A 1,000,000-year-old centipede can also become one. It is a sacred being that transcended its species through numerous fables and molting to become a constellation. It's not strange for a sacred being such as this to have a high-level skill like Demon's Formation. Kim realizes that this place is also affected by Demon Formation. Kim thinks that no matter how strong Yamamoto is, there's no way that the White Demon King Izumi Hiroki would lose to someone like that. The system notifies Kim that his movement has been slowed due to the Demon's Formation effect, and his mental fortitude has also decreased. Kim wonders what is going on in Japan during this round. Kim tells Yamamoto that there is no way someone like him would be able to lead a Japanese group. Yamamoto replies that he is the current king of Japan and glares at Kim. The system notifies Kim that the catastrophe's plausibility has increased due to the scenario buff, and the constellation begins to wield a portion of his true power. Kim feels a threatening aura from him, and there's a warning on screen that he shouldn't show hostility against his current target. The related main scenario has been activated. The system displays the main scenario number 6, Little Savior. The category is main, the difficulty is S. Clear conditions are to fight alongside the small people to defeat the catastrophes who are attacking the planet of Peaceland. The time limit is 40 days, and rewards are 300,000 coins and something unknown. The penalty for failure is the destruction of Peaceland. The system notifies that the catastrophes currently encountered are the second catastrophe that dreams of usurping. The first catastrophe is the King of Catastrophes. The system notifies that the catastrophe that dreams of usurping reveals itself as Yamamoto Hajime. A warning appears again for Kim. If he wants to turn down this scenario, then he should hunt down a small person within the next 10 minutes, or else the star stream will consider him to have no intention of acting as a catastrophe. A timer appears above Kim's head. Kim thinks that the King of Catastrophes, whom he still hasn't encountered, must be the serpent incarnate. Kim tells Yamamoto that they shouldn't fight because he is not his actual target. He tells Kim to just die. The ground starts breaking under Kim's feet, and a huge centipede appears. The system warns Kim that the catastrophe Yamamoto is not under any penalties because he can attack a fellow catastrophe. Kim thinks so he can attack him without having to worry about growing smaller. The centipede attacks Kim, but he jumps backward to avoid the attack. The system notifies Kim that the constellation has increased their synchronization with their incarnation, and a few constellations are not happy with Yamamoto's actions. Kim starts running away from the centipede, and the system notifies that the constellation that has given away his life to seal away demons is looking at Kim. Yamamoto orders his men to attack Kim. Kim thinks that he must know that he will grow smaller once he kills someone. He thinks that if he takes someone's life here, then he could lose the effects of the King of No Killing. He can't waste his precious extra life on killing Japan's leader. Masked men block Kim's path from the front and the centipede attacks from behind. Kim activates the Ganpyeongwi's special ability, the Echo of Stars. It allows Kim to seek the help of a high constellation. The constellation can refuse his request, and the number of times Ganpyeongui can be used will be reduced when the constellation responds to his request. The system notifies that the high constellations hear his voice flowing through the stars. Kim shouts that he calls upon the onmyoji of contradictions, and light strikes at Kim from the skies. The system notifies that the stigma, 5 elements of yin and yang level 1, has nullified the effects of the demon's formation. Kim makes a hand sign, and onmyoji appears behind him. There's a gust of wind, and leaves start flying towards the masked men. The system notifies that Stigma Shikigami Level 1 has immobilized all occultists and monsters of fable nearby. Someone yells to watch out. They are no ordinary leaves. Kim thinks that Shikigami, also known as a paper doll, is a stigma that's fatally effective against monsters of fable. The masked men are unable to move. Yamamoto says that he has chosen a supporting constellation with the origins of a monster fable. Kim thinks that the constellation he called upon is Japan's #1 exorcist, the onmyoji of contradictions Abe no Seimei. Yamamoto tells Kim that he used his head quite well there, but he has also been immobilized. Once his mana runs out, he will be dead. The system notifies that the constellation centipede is glaring at the onmyoji with contradictions, and it is warning him not to get in his way. Kim thinks that he is right. He will only be able to hold for the next 1 or 2 minutes, but about him dying, he starts laughing and says they will see about that. Kim says now, old lady, she jumps down from Kim's shoulder and becomes big again. Everyone is surprised to see that. Yamamoto tells his men not to be startled. She is just an old lady. Kim thinks that she never grew smaller in size because she entered the scenario as a small person in the first place. That was thanks to the spell that Giannucci, who worked under his mom, put on her. The system notifies that the incarnation Bok Sun Lee used the skill to respect the elderly at level 7. She starts walking towards the masked men, and everyone starts bowing down. The system notifies them that all incarnations who are younger than her have been overcome with respect for her. She starts smiling, thanks them for bowing down, and says that there's no need to make way for the little old lady. She stomps her foot on the ground, and the system notifies her that Bok Sun Lee is preparing to cast the stigma in the invocation rite level 2. The system notifies that the constellation, the Shaman King, is looking at their incarnation with third eyes. She says, come on now, just help her out. Kim thinks that her supporting constellation is the Shaman King. He was the second king of Silla and also a shaman. He went by the name Chachong. Despite being a high-tier constellation, he is known to rarely take part in combat himself. Instead, he passed down one of his mightiest abilities to his incarnation called Invocation Rite. It is a powerful stigma that one can use to borrow a single ability belonging to any constellation, so in other words, that old lady is pretty much a living Ganpyeongui. Bok Sun Lee asks whose powers she should borrow this time. Yamamoto calls her a fool and says that it doesn't matter whose power she borrows unless it is from a constellation that is fabled or higher. She says, hey centipede, let her tell him a story. A long time ago, there was a village, and in that village lived a fair maiden. She was so kind-hearted that she would generously provide for any creature that walked into her kitchen, even little creatures like toads, but one day that fair maiden was chosen to be sacrificed to a monster that hunted the village, and that village was under the rule of a giant centipede. Soon, the poor maiden arrived at the habitat of the centipede, but a creature had come to save that maiden from a centipede. Yamamoto is shocked to hear that story. He orders his men to stop her. He looks scared and says that her supporting constellation is a toad. Bok Sun Lee is smiling and says that the toad that saved the maiden was the same toad she had fed earlier. She looks stronger and bigger than before. Kim thinks that the constellation she called upon is the toad of Ogonwon. Bok Sun Lee starts walking towards Yamamoto. She has a giant toad behind her. The system notifies that the constellation toad of Ogonwon enlarges its body with a satisfactory smile. Yamamoto is scared of her constellation. Kim thinks that dramatization is what happens when two constellations that are related end up facing each other, and the constellations that have famous fables about them are powerful, and they grow even stronger when they are in similar situations that in the fables about them. Bok Sun Lee grabs Yamamoto from his arms and lifts him in the air. He starts screaming in pain, and she asks him what he thinks happened next. The system notifies that the blue flame of the toad has regained its original power due to dramatization. Bok Sun Lee opens her mouth wide, and the system notifies her that the attack power of the blue flame of the toad has increased by 300% due to the stigma of Shikigami. Yamamoto starts sweating and Bok Sun-lee attacks her with a fire blast from her mouth. She say the moral of the story was not to play with fire. Bok Sun-lee drops him on the ground and Yamamoto's face is burned. The system notifies them that a catastrophe of renown has fallen and she has received 5,000 coins. The system notifies Kim that the effects of the stigma Shinigami have come undone due to the excessive use of mana, and all the leaves also start disappearing. Bok Sun-lee has returned back to her old self. Kim comes near her as she is wiping sweat from her face. The system notifies that the main contributors are Bok Sun-lee and Dokja Kim, and that the character Bok Sun-lee has forfeited all of her powers as a catastrophe. The dokkaebi has decided that Bok Sun-lee has taken up a hostile stance against the scenario. The system notifies them that Bok Sun-lee has begun to grow smaller. She asks Kim if he could carry her, and Kim tells her that she should put something on first. The masked men shout that they killed their leader and start running towards Kim. Kim activates the Way of the Wind level 8 and attacks the masked men. The system notified that Kim received a level 2 scenario penalty. Kim thinks that he has 10 minutes left with the ability from the bookmark skill and 5 minutes until the penalty kicks in, and he has to escape this forest within that time limit. Kim starts running when he hears a voice. Ren shouts at him from the cage to take her with him. Kim grabs everyone and starts running. A masked man says kill him. He's going to grow smaller soon. They start throwing knives at Kim. Kim thinks that this is too dangerous. Suddenly, Kim stops running and he notices that the forest is changing shape. Ren shouts at Kim to be careful because it is nighttime. Kim looks up at the sky and says that he remembers now that no one enters the forest of Peaceland after sundown because the forest turns into a labyrinth at night and assumes a shape that's much like the intestine of a monster. Masked men see that their path is blocked by the first, and the system notifies Kim to hunt down a small person within the next minute. Kim thinks that TWSA doesn't have any records on how to escape from the forest. Ren tells Kim to run to the right of that tree over there. Kim starts running. Bok Sun asks Ren if she knows the way out. Ren replies that she knows the forest inside out. Bok Sun says that she must have a skill that helps her with that, and Ren says that she does. Some of the masked men spot Kim again and start attacking. Only 30 seconds remain, and Ren says that they are almost out of the woods. The countdown ends, and the system notifies Kim that he failed to hunt down a small person within the time limit. The dokkaebi of Starstream has determined that he has no intention of acting as a catastrophe, so he will now be under level 3 penalty, and now he will begin to grow smaller. Kim tells everyone to get off of him, and everyone jumps on the ground. Lightning strikes and Kim transforms into a small size. Shin asks if he is alright. Kim thinks that he is lucky that his coat shrunk with him. Kim looks at Asuka Ren and calls her name. She says that she doesn't recall ever telling him who she is. Kim tells her that Michio told him about her and tells her to please lead the way for his friends. Kim asks Ren if she could take them to Veronica's castle. She asks how he knows about the locations of Peaceland. Kim says that there's no time to explain because he needs to stop the masked men. Ren says okay. Lee tells Kim that he can't leave him behind, and Kim tells him that he must. It is the only way for everyone to survive. Kim says that he can make to escape if he is alone. The masked man arrives there and says that Kim has grown small, so he will stomp him into the ground like a bug. Kim thinks that now that he is smaller, even a small fry like him looks scarier, so he tells Gilliong to call for help. Gilliong nods his head and calls some insects. Everyone gets on top of the insects, and Kim says that he will see them all later. The masked man starts attacking Kim with a knife, but he dodges the blade and thinks that even a mere graze is enough to kill him. The masked man says that he will kill Kim and everyone else should go after the others. Kim says that he won't let them and activates the stigma of Shikigami level 1. The leaves start sticking to the masked men again and they are unable to move. Blood starts dripping from Kim's nose. The system notifies him that the constellation Onmyoji of Contradictions has given him his blessings. A voice says that he is moved by how Kim put the safety of his allies before himself. Kim thinks that it is a constellation voice. He says that it is nothing, but he would like it if he kept on helping him. The voice says that he has a favor to ask from him. Kim thinks that he has a bad feeling about this, and the constellation says that he wants Kim to kill the serpent for the incarnation of Japan. Kim is surprised to hear that. He thinks that it is not a bad deal because he needs to kill the serpent anyway. Kim tells the constellation that it doesn't sound fair, but he will consider it if he recovers his mana a little more. The system notifies Kim that the constellation Onmyoji of Contradictions has used magic to recover his mana by a minuscule amount. Kim starts smiling and thinks that he shouldn't expect more from the Onmyoji of Contradictions. Kim says that he doesn't get it. He asks what happened to Japan when they had a great king like Izumi. The constellation says that Izumi was a fine incarnation. Kim asks why they let the serpent become the king of catastrophes and run amok, and isn't Izumi's supporting constellation the one who kills the serpent? The constellation replies that he has got it all wrong, that it is not Izumi's supporting constellation. Kim is surprised to hear that. The constellation's voice disappears. Kim thinks that the rule of plausibility doesn't allow any more information to be known. The system notifies Kim that 30 seconds are remaining to use the power of the Ganpyeongui. Kim sees that the Shikigami has started to vanish, and he wonders if he will be able to make it if he were to run toward the forest. He thinks that he might end up getting himself killed. Time is running out, and the system notifies Kim that the Constellation Defense Master is sighing at how pathetic he is.